If I was a Georgia fan, this is something that I would keep my eye on. It's not the end-all be-all for you. I still think you're easily one of the top 3 teams in the country, but just keep your eyes on this. If this does continue to happen, you might have a serious problem on your hands. Okay, so let me ask y'all a question. Is it really college football if people aren't non-stop complaining 24/7? I don't think so. I'm jumping straight into this. The new AP poll rankings officially have came out, and a lot of people aren't happy. And when I say a lot of people, let me clarify on that statement. I'm more so talking about Ohio State fans. They're all clamoring and saying the same stuff that everybody else says. Oh, the SEC bias, it's real, they get favored way too much, and yada yada yada. And here's where the mixed feelings and emotions start to come in, because if you are an SEC fan like myself, you don't think there's SEC bias. It's much deserved respect. Let me put it this way. I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. Is there SEC bias? Yes, but they earned it. Whenever your conference has literally dominated the sport over the past 15 to 20 years, yeah, you deserve to get some bias here and there. Let me give you a quick example so I can put it into an even better perspective. Whenever Tiger Woods was absolutely Donkey Kong smashing everybody in the golfing industry, he was always a betting favorite. He was always the favorite to win. And then boom, out of nowhere, a lot of terrible stuff happened that we don't have time to talk about in this video, but if you know, you know. However, even still, after that terrible stuff happening, he was always a favorite. He may not have been necessarily the favorite, but he was always up there and there was bias towards him. Why? Because he earned it. We'll touch on that a little later, but the main encore, the main topic of this video is Georgia football. I've been watching their film the past couple of days, and it is clear as day to see they have one major weakness. Whoa. Hold on. What's odd about this is I can guarantee you it's not what you think. It's not, and I already know some of you are probably thinking I'm going to say it's Stetson Bennett, and no, that's not the weakness. This one glaring weakness, it could ruin everything, and if I was a Georgia fan, I'd be concerned. We're going to talk all about it in this video and dive deep into detail on that. No intro, none of that. It's simple. We're on the road to 300K. If you like the content, consider subscribing. If you don't like, don't so. All right, man, blah. Shut the crap up. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. I would like to start off this video with something that I stumbled across and it grabbed my attention. The reason I'm talking about this and bringing it up is because I want you guys to let me know your comments and thoughts below. Is Oklahoma State, the 7th ranked team in the country, underappreciated? Check out what this Alabama fan had to say about that. I've been saying this for a while, but Oklahoma State is the single most disrespected team in college football. They've been constantly good for the last decade and a half, and no one gives them any credit for it or just brings up the series record with OU. Under that, a Clemson fan responded, they continue to be overshadowed by the quote-unquote bigger programs in the region, regardless of the fact that they have outperformed them for a long time. I mean, look at how much more attention Texas A&M gets. Since 2010, A&M has won 10 or more games once. Wow, Oklahoma State has done it 7 times. Woo! What about that? And I kind of agree, because although Oklahoma State ranks 7th in the country, they've been so good ever since 2010, nobody talks about them. Whether you want to believe this or not, I think it's true. Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Texas, they have gotten far more credit and far more TV exposure, etc. than Oklahoma State, who has been the better program. I myself think it boils down to this. Yeah, it's cool and it's good for your program to win 10 games a year, but it's not a championship. That's the cold and harsh reality. Unless you're winning national championships, no one else cares and no one else is going to talk about you with the big boys. Whoa. Hold on. I know what some of you about to run to the comments and say, and I'm right there with you. Well, Matt, Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, they haven't won a championship in forever, and they're still getting more credit and attention. Hey, man, I'm right there with you. It doesn't make sense, but that's why I brought it up, because Oklahoma State, in my opinion, is underappreciated. Let me know your thoughts down below. Alrighty, let's talk about these AP rankings real quick, and more importantly, we're not going to talk about it too long, but we got to talk about Georgia and Ohio State. Somebody said, so Georgia struggled 2 weeks in a row against non-ranked teams, and Ohio State took care of business like they're supposed to, and Georgia is still ahead of us, shaking my head. Under that, somebody replied, bro, your team is in the Big Ten, shut up. Everything's tougher in the SEC, which I agree with. You also have some people trying to state that Ohio State should be number 1, and I think that's just being delusional. Absolutely not. I told you guys in the Sunday recap, my top 3 would be Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia. And I still believe that 100%. However, the rankings turned out to be Alabama number 1, Georgia 2, and Ohio State 3. So for all my Ohio State fans out there, I'm with you guys. I think you should be number 2. But here's the thing, and I want some of y'all to look at this. You're not even close to being number 2. And a lot of people didn't even notice or pay attention to this. Georgia actually has more AP first place votes than Alabama. Alabama is barely number 1 by 2 single points. The gap between Georgia and Alabama is 2 points, but the gap between Georgia and Ohio State is about 40. If you want to be technical and do the math and do the numbers, Georgia is technically 33 points ahead of Ohio State, and Alabama is only 2 ahead of Georgia. And then we all know, as you can see right here, the gap between the top 3 and number 4, not even comparable. What that tells me, and you can like this or not, but it's the cold hard truth, and you know how I am. I love the cold hard truth. These AP poll voters, they don't respect Ohio State like they do for Georgia and Bama. Although I would have Ohio State at number 2, I don't blame them for having them at number 3, and here's why. You play in the sorry and sucky overrated Big Ten. Outside of Ohio State, the Big Ten is dog crap. If you don't want to believe me, I'm going to show you a picture of the Big Ten West. This is the Big Ten West. I think it'd be nice to say it's pathetic. Illinois, Minnesota, and Iowa are currently the top 3 teams in the Big Ten West. If you put those same 3 teams in the SEC, they don't even win 5 games. I would say all 3 of those teams are about on the same level as Auburn, and Auburn may not win 6 games this year. You can do what you want with this information. I don't know how you can look at these teams and say the Big Ten's good. Moving on to our main topic of the main encore, the main reason you clicked on this video. We gotta talk about Georgia. Georgia. Would you look at how the tables have turned? In the first 3 weeks of the season, they was the undisputed, unanimous best team in the country, and it wasn't even close. They was hitting on all cylinders. They blew out a decent Oregon team by more than 40 points. They also blew out South Carolina and blew out Samford. I know it was early in the season, but it's hard for me to believe they could play any better than that until the end of the year. They was on fire. It was simple as that. Unfortunately, all good things have to come to an end. In the past 2 weeks, I don't know what's happened. They haven't looked necessarily bad, but they haven't looked good either. Starting it off with this one first, we gotta talk about the Kent State game. They struggled in this one. I know it looks like a 17-point win, but in reality, this was a 10-point game until a late pick 6. This was the definition of one of those struggle games where everybody was like, okay, it's Kent State. They weren't hyped for it. They still won by double digits. Move on. Nobody really thought too much of this game, and I can't blame them. Like I said earlier, though, I went back and watched the film, and we'll talk about that in just a second. In the following week, which was week 5, what just happened, I'm pretty sure we all saw this. They barely escaped Missouri, the worst team in the SEC, or one of the worst, 26-22. In both of these games, Stetson Bennett has finally returned to his DoorDash Bennett self. He's playing mediocre. He's not playing bad, don't get it twisted, but he's playing like we all saw him play last year. He's not an elite quarterback. All he does is throw 5-yard and 10-yard slants across the middle and throw bubble screens to Brock Bowers and let them do the work. But hey, like I stated, I'm not knocking the kid. That's what Georgia is asking him to do. That's all they need him to do. Be mediocre. Get the ball to our 5-star recruits and let them do the work. Here's something to take a look at, though, and we got to talk about it. Look at Kent State in the Georgia game. Kent State had 281 total yards of offense, and Georgia had over 500. So when you look at the box scoring on paper, this shouldn't have been that close. Same thing against Missouri. I watched this game from start to finish, and although it felt like Missouri had control in the first half and maybe even the third quarter, they still was heavily outgained by Georgia, 481 to 294 total yards. Once again, I'm going to repeat that. Georgia had 481 total yards, and Missouri didn't even crack 300. Whenever I saw that stat line for the first time, I was like, wait a minute, hold on, this doesn't make sense. Because if you watch the game like myself, it felt like Missouri was in control. But when you look at the numbers and go back and watch the film and you know what to look for, you can tell like, oh yeah, Georgia, they was moving the ball with ease. Whoa, hold on. I know what you're sitting there saying, yo, Matt, why have you brought up these numbers? What does this mean? Well, my friend, I'm glad you asked that question, because there's one more important stat line we got to go over, and it's the weakness. Oh, wait a minute. What's this right here? Turnovers. Georgia had 2 costly ones against Missouri, and Missouri had 0. Flashback in time, only a week before against Kent State, the other close game, Georgia had 3 turnovers. Turnovers and silly mistakes was the only reason Kent State and Missouri was even in these ball games. You take away those costly fumbles, these aren't even competitive. Whoa. Hold on. I know what you're sitting there saying. Yo, Matt, are you kidding me? Turnovers, that's simple. They can clean that up. Now, yes, that is a fair point, and I do agree with that, but it also leads into bigger things. I want you to keep this in the back of the mind. You see how much Georgia outgained Missouri and Kent State, but what if they're playing in Alabama? What if they're playing a good Tennessee team? What if they're playing Kentucky? What if they're playing a really good SEC team and they can't have 480 yards or 500 yards of total offense? If you have just one costly fumble or just one costly interceptions against an Alabama or now even a Tennessee, the game's over. It's none of this, oh, we're playing Kent State so we can get away with it. It's none of this, oh, we're playing Missouri so we can get away with it. No, one mistake, the game's over. You lose. And also, to go on top of that, I'm going to go out on a limb here to say you're not going to get 500 yards of total offense on Alabama's defense. Maybe they will, I don't know, but I don't even know if a Georgia fan would go out there to say that much. Let's take a look at Georgia's schedule, shall we? You got an easy 2 or 3 game stretch coming up, but once you get into this 4-game stretch, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and I don't know why I said Georgia Tech, it's just a 3-game stretch. You can't mess up like you did against Missouri. I get it 100%. Some of y'all may not think it's a big deal, but I can guarantee you it is a big deal if it continues to happen. You may not see an L in the column when you're playing these sorry teams, but have one of these turnovers, like I said, against a good team, it'll bite you in the butt. This is a real and legit weakness for the Georgia team, because if they don't have these turnovers, we saw what happens in the first 3 games. They blow every single team out. The problem is, and why I'm labeling this as a weakness, is because I've seen it in 2 straight games back to back. In the first game against Kent State, I chalked up as a fluke, but I can't do that anymore. And maybe I am overhyping this. Maybe it was just a rough 2-game stretch, a bump in the road. Maybe that's all it is. I don't know about all that, but here's what I do know. We'll find out in this next game against Auburn, and even against Vanderbilt, if it continues to happen. If I was a Georgia fan, this is something that I would keep my eye on. It's not the end-all be-all for you. I still think you're easily one of the top 3 teams in the country, but just keep your eyes on this. If this does continue to happen, you might have a serious problem on your hands. Just like always, I'm very curious. Let me know your thoughts down below, but right away, Millie!